Well, I've known Nick Nichols for probably 30 years as a friend. My partner was Philip Jones Griffiths at Magnum, and so Nick and all the young Turks really adored Philip and used to come and worship at his feet. And then in the early days when Nick would go off to the jungles and he'd get really sick and he'd come back and stay at our place, I'd have to take care of him to keep him from dying from lockjaw, like shooting him up with potent drugs. And then I used to always stay at Nick's house when I was working on domestic violence or teenage sexual stories, teenage sex stories for Life magazine. So I would stay with Nick and Reba. So we became his friends, and then when they had the first look at his house, I did that one, and then I went to another one. But this is really a big deal, what they've done for me this time. This goes way beyond anything that I've ever done with any photo festival ever. And I'm really thankful to Nick and David and Melissa and the whole gang here, Vince, everybody. Well, photo festivals are about pleasure, and pleasure, at its highest level is also about communication. So here you bring together really committed, hardworking photographers who've proven themselves through the last maybe 2-3 decades, and they have stories to tell and pictures to share. And they have wisdom to impart with the up-and-coming photographers, as well as the young photographers have a lot of energy and ideas and wisdom to give with us. So it's an exchange. A festival is an exchange, but it's also a chance for us all to hang out and get a little wild with each other, have fun together, break bread together, and enjoy good photography. The presentations at night, the master presentations, are extraordinary. And when you have it in a place like this, where you have the incredible facilities, you have a lot of respect for showing work. I feel the respect for the photographers here much more so than I felt in other festivals. I don't usually take these photo festivals very seriously, but after experiencing the love and the tenderness that they've given to me, then I start to understand how this is different from everybody else. So I think it's a way for us all to just hang out and share our stories with each other and see what each other's up to. The most pivotal moment for me was seeing a husband that I thought really loved his wife beat her within an inch of her life, and I really thought that she was this lucky woman who was, sort of living the ideal dream. She could do whatever she wanted. She seemed to be sexually liberated in the home and in her marriage, and her husband seemed to adore her. And so after 6 months of watching their relationship blossom and then die, I began to understand how she was trapped like a fly in a box. And and when I saw him beating her and realized that there was very little that anybody could do, that this was something he'd done before, and he knew exactly what he was doing, and she could not stand him off, that's when I had to wake up as a photographer and figure out, what am I going to do with these pictures? What does it all mean, taking pictures? When you're in people's lives. Like, I don't do these things, war photographers, where I'm running around in the streets and photographing all hell breaking loose, but photographing people who I'll never see again. And if they die, I'm sorry for them, but I'm never going to know really what happened to them or their families or their grandchildren or what happened to the neighbors. I'm never going to know the impact that my photographs could have had on any of them. But when you're in people's homes like I am, and you start to see the raw, real stuff of people's lives, that is what builds your character as a photographer, and as well, it puts a lot of responsibility on you. And I've had a lot of responsibility on me for the last 30 years. Well, being a woman is a pretty cool thing. You know, because first of all, women, we get a little confused in our 20s when we're in our childbearing years, and we're a little confused about like the power setup, you know, and like, is the man more powerful than the woman because he's out in the world and he's got a job and he's making money and he's paying the bills, and he comes home and he sees us, you know, at the end of the day, and we're all so excited? Or is the woman more powerful because she's running the home and she's taking care of his needs and she's taking care of her children's needs and she's ignoring her own needs, you know, through her 20s and 30s? I mean, I'm curious about that, because I think that as women ignore their needs in their early years, they become more powerful. Whereas men have so much burden on them in those like 20 to 30 years to be a man and do this and do that, just to keep the family system on, you know, on a certain level, which they've all become accustomed to, you know, and paying the bills and having a job and, you know, being in a certain place out in the world. But I think that the fact that the men don't have a lot of responsibilities in the house makes them weaker through the years. If men were really more obligated to do 50-50 with the women in the house and taking care of the children, they would probably live longer like women do. As women get older, we get stronger. We realize that we can do everything. We can work jobs. We can take care of the kids. We can take care of a home. We can be good lovers. We can be good wives. You know, we can do everything. We can be best friends. I mean, women thrive because of our friendships with other women. So as we get older, we get stronger. Our bodies get stronger. And I think that as a woman photographer, I've gotten much stronger through the years, as I've learned how to navigate in very tricky psychological situations where, you know, I mean, I ride with the Hells Angels, you know, and a lot of them want to ram my camera down my throat when they see me pointing it at them in very intimate situations. But because I'm a woman, they don't. And I use that, you know, I use my power as a woman, my presence as a woman, to both inspire respect and a little fear in men, my male subjects. I've never had a male try to come after me and beat me up when I've been working on a domestic violence story. But I have had women in the houses who are hiding out when the police came, who come and jump on my back and try to rip my cameras away because they see me photographing. And it's usually the women who are the most, they're not, you know, they're not predictable. Men are, and in a lot of these situations, they're hardly noticing me. They really aren't. When men are like driven in some way, they're like very focused on whatever they're trying to do, usually to get that woman to behave and make her, no matter what. They don't even care if a cop's around. So they don't care about me. But I have been attacked more than once by women. So, you know, I think women have to really, as photographers, we use our sensibilities. We have to really use them very, very well, and not take advantage of anybody because of it. And I'm saying sensibilities. I'm not saying our sex, but we can use our sexuality, but not our sex when we're in these situations. There's a difference to that. I mean, I think it's a very, very great thing to be a woman in almost every documentary situation, because we are so sensitive, we see so much. We have eyes in the back of our heads. We see everything around. We smell everything. We feel everything. We're quite emotional, and we're not embarrassed about it. And it makes us stronger as photographers as time goes by. First of all, I've done, you know, back in the mid-90s, when I realized that shelters really needed a lot of support, I started a non-for-profit organization called Domestic Abuse Awareness Incorporated. And it was the first non-for-profit that a photographer had ever begun. And the idea of it was to raise money for shelters through people coming to see the photographs, paying a lot of money to see them, and the money would go directly to all the shelters or the children's groups. I was enabling them to raise the money. They had to pay a minimum fee. In the beginning, it was $1,500 for a show that was pretty extensive, a very impressive large show with narrative captions, I would always let the organizations have 10 photographs that they could use to make their own posters, to make any kind of exhibit and to promote the show in any way possible to raise more money. So I've done about 500 of those shows everywhere in the world, and for many of the large governments around the world. What's been real interesting is that they always talk about bringing me there to do photographs, but nobody wants to put money into it. Nobody. And you know, the reason I was able to do this work was because I was working in the heyday of photojournalism. So I had Life magazine backing me, the Philadelphia Inquirer magazine backing me, New York Times magazine backing me, even Stern. You know, I would just go to these different magazines and say, you can't use any of the old work, but you can hire me to do new work. You have to take a chance on me. So I was able to get money that way. Winning the Eugene Smith didn't give me very much money because I shared it with Letizia Battaglia, but it gave me incredible credibility. Because before I got the Eugene Smith, no magazine, not even Ms., wanted to publish my pictures. They were all afraid. The media is incredibly afraid of publishing domestic violence images, but I always got releases, and I work very closely with people. So it's not like I just go into people's lives, steal a couple pictures, and then run away and get them published. And my releases are very extensive, and they explain what the story is about, that it's about domestic violence in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or San Mateo or wherever I am. I would love to work in another country, but they don't want to pay for it. And that's why there really aren't any photographers who have done this kind of work, because it's really hard. You have to live in shelters for thousands of hours. You have to ride with cops thousands of hours, live in emergency rooms, and go up to women when they've just come in with their faces beaten in and they've been run over, and you have to say, excuse me, can you give me permission to take your picture and show you at the worst time of your life? And you have to talk to the families too. I mean, you have to do all these things. Very few photographers want to do that kind of work. Very few photographers want to go up to somebody when they've just been brutalized and say, can I take your picture and put it on the cover of a magazine? You know, so I want to do this work. I will do this work very soon, because one amazing woman in India and Bangladesh has been writing to me since I put up my Facebook I Am Unbeatable page. I've been getting incredible response from everybody. So this woman just wrote to me and she said she wants me to come and teach photographers all over India, all over Pakistan, all over Afghanistan, teach them how to photograph domestic violence. And I will do that with her, because I'm an old woman, you know, I'm a rough old dog. And I'm not going to go running around like I used to do when I was in my 30s. But I will teach all these photographers how to do it. And I've been teaching them here. I did a workshop last summer in the Hamptons. And then I just did one in Mexico, in Oaxaca, that was great, with 15 students, and they'd like to bring me back. So I think the smartest thing for me to do right now is to be a mentor to all these photographers who can just like zip right into these situations. And I have to teach them how to be courageous, how to be able to stand in front of someone who's freaking out, who's crying, who's really upset, and don't be embarrassed to take her or his picture. You know, what I have to do with photographers is break down their bourgeois conditioning, their conditioning that says they shouldn't be seeing certain things that are done behind closed doors. Well, Tribeca, the whole thing with Tribeca happened when, after 9/11, and basically my neighborhood was attacked after 9/11, and that was such a huge shock, because I love this. This is where I found my sanity, and I built my house there, and it's a kind of a place, it's the real old side of New York City, and it's still a very sacred ground. But after, unfortunately I was in Germany, seeing Stern magazine on that morning, and I had gone there to sell a story that I'd done on swingers, and I couldn't believe it that here it was 9 o'clock in the morning, my neighborhood was under attack, and I was talking about swingers. And I thought, Jesus, Donna, you're not a real photographer anymore. What the hell is going on with you? How could you miss this? Because I'm all about access. And if I don't have access, then I'm not a photographer. And there it was happening in my own neighborhood, and I wasn't there. And it destroyed me, honestly. It destroyed me. I didn't want to be a photographer anymore. I started to work making films. I worked for Oxygen TV, and I did a whole series on sex lives on videotape, which is all about what women want sexually. That's in some of my piece that's at the show. You'll see it in the peep box. So I did that for a while, and then I started, and I moved away from Tribeca. I couldn't really afford to live in my own home. Rented it out to this really rich guy from Merrill Lynch who could afford to live there, and he nearly killed me. He was such a tricky guy, and basically I had to come back with no money and try to survive in Tribeca, and my building, which was under siege by people who were trying to destroy it within the building. So I'm a fighter. I'm really a fighter, and having to go back to Tribeca, try to save my neighborhood, save my house, save my life, made me start to fall in love with Tribeca again. Also seeing how the World Trade Center was gone, El Teddy's was gone, all these places that were the real landmarks of Tribeca were disappearing. So that's why I decided to stop filming, stop being a videographer, go back to taking pictures in the night, in the strange times of the day and the night. And I fell in love with this neighborhood again, and I'm more in love with it than ever. Even though I don't really like the changes. When we photograph things, we don't mind changes, because changes are beautiful, but changes are pretty exciting, and we can't stop change. I really believe people need to live with me. They need the full body 24-hour experience, because I really need to see what they're about. So any photographer who wants to learn with me for real, they got to make a pilgrimage, and they got to come and stay with me, and they have to give me their souls. They do. And so that's the way then, because if they really want to become this kind of an intense, intimate photographer, then they have to come and go deep. And it's all about learning how to do the stuff in the house too. Like the male photographers, they learn how to cook and clean, wash the clothes, like, you know, do the stuff. Like they'll be thinking, no, I'm a guy, but some of them want to stand and comb their hair with the girls before we go out. Well, like we did this big thing with the U.S. Army a few years ago on domestic violence, and I had 3 women and a guy. And okay, sometimes I play a little, you know, favoritism with my girls and say, okay, you can like comb your hair before we go downstairs, and you, the man, you go down and get the pickup truck ready, so suitcases. And I was amazed with this guy, Tomeo. You'll see him here. He's still my #1. But he was, and he had beautiful hair. He looks like Brad Pitt. And he was saying, no, Donna, I need to comb my hair. And he's standing there. And I said, Tomeo, no, you have to get downstairs and get the truck ready. Come on, you're a man. So sometimes we have to do that, you know? It's like, my photographers are like my children. They're like my daughters and sons. And I have one daughter, and she's my everything. But I really feel like you know, a great love for all the students that who then come and that really give themselves to me, because it's not easy to be with me, but it's fun. It's always fun and unpredictable. So what's next is the Unbeatable campaign, and we hopefully will be ready to launch that tomorrow night. That's going to be super big, because I have been really concerned lately that a lot of young women who are in the limelight, women like Rihanna, are giving really bad messages to women today. And many years ago, I actually bought Hillary Clinton at a child care action campaign. I paid $4,500 to have a tea party with Hillary before Bill Clinton won the presidency. I knew that they would win it. So, together. So I won that lunch with her, the tea party, and I took all the powerful women in the country in domestic violence to meet with her, and I took Fanny and my dad and my mom. And we talked to her about domestic violence, and I was really shocked at her answers because she wanted to know the language from us. But when we asked her, let's get a, how could we start a think tank around domestic violence? This was like 92, 93. And she said, well, I'm a lawyer, and I have gotten a lot of divorces for battered women, and I have gotten a lot of protection orders for battered women, and I'm still shocked at how often they go back to their abusers. And I really think that women have to take responsibility for the violence in their lives. We were devastated. I mean, we just sat there speechless. And I looked at Hillary and I said, well, okay, I hear what you're saying, but I hope you do realize that so many women today are leaving. They've got those protection orders, they're doing what we tell them to do, and they're ending up murdered like dogs on their doorsteps. What do you want us to tell their children after mothers do what we tell them to do? And Hillary didn't really know what to say at that point. It was tough for her. But I've listened to those words in my head all these years. Some 25 years later, I think that there's a lot of truth to what Hillary said, and I think that we have to learn a lot from the women who do get out of these situations, or men, whoever gets out of an abusive situation, before it's too late, before they lose their dignity, before they lose their pride, before they lose their beauty, their strength, their intelligence. They have to get the hell out before that person that they're with turns into a shark, a feeding shark. So that's what Unbeatable is about, is going out to find these incredible people in a caravan, and I'm going to have my team with me, and we're going to have, I've already started to do this. So we're going to take them to the highest mountains, we're going to hear their incredible stories, I'll take beautiful portraits of them, and we'll create a book and a movement called Unbeatable. And that's what's next. That's coming soon.